One of the things I did is I went and talked to some people I believe to be your friends. One said, "We are friends. He's not that smirking jackass he plays on Abby's show."
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to yesterday's news channel where we watch CNN so you don't have to. Today we're on Uber lefty Kara Swisher's podcast where Scott Jennings walks straight into hostile territory. And while they eventually discuss Scott's new book he's there to promote, Kara Swisher is hellbent on dedicating a large portion of the interview trying to convince Scott he plays a character on TV, that he's a fraud, and that he's somehow performing for Trump voters. She's deadpan, she's extremely condescending, and she clearly doesn't like him. But Scott never takes the bait because, well, he's a class act. Anyway, let's watch this failed, desperate gotcha attempt. Let's go.
One of the things you said to me that struck me is that you compared the panel you're on with Abby on Newsnight on CNN to wrestling. And I found that horrifying in some ways and also accurate at the same time. So talk to me about how you think of yourself as a character right now, I guess, in some ways.
Well, I have compared it to wrestling somewhat because it's the only show on television that is, in my opinion, a true debating show. It is truly a show built around conflict, the conflict between conservatives and liberals, Democrats and Republicans on the issues of the day. I'm actually somewhat shocked that other cable channels don't try this because I go around, I talk to a lot of people, I hear two things. I love you and I love the debates, or I don't like you, but I love the debates. And everyone tells me the debate format to them is informative and it's entertaining. And I think there's a hunger for it. So I actually think CNN deserves a lot of credit for creating the space for it. I think we're better for it. I think a lot of conservatives who had stopped watching CNN are at least now consuming some of the content via social media, and it's generated by that show.
So when you say wrestling is fake, right? Is that fake to you? I mean, one of the things I did is I went and talked to some people I believe to be your friends. One said, "We are friends. He's not that smirking jackass he plays on Abby's show. He's a good guy." And also added that the real Scott is thoughtful and compelling, and some of his critiques of the Democratic Party are fair. But it noted that Trump is antithetical to some of your basic beliefs and that you are carrying water as a business proposition. I'm sure you've heard that.
Oh, I hear all the criticisms. And look, I'm trying to give people an authentic view and a fighting view of how most Republicans and most conservatives are absorbing either the breaking news of the moment or the issue of the moment that we happen to be going over. So I am somewhat of a press secretary for half the country, or sometimes more than half the country on any of these issues. And I'm trying to give you an authentic representation of how all this is being absorbed by non-liberal America.
So her entire line of questioning is built on one assumption, that Scott is playing some kind of WWE character on Abby Phillipps' panel. And she keeps pressing him to admit it. But notice something. She never once points to anything he actually said. There's no quote, no contradiction, no inconsistency, just a vague accusation that he's performative. And what's her evidence? That Scott smirks. That is the full depth of her argument. Apparently, Democrat robots like her are unable to understand simple human behavior. When someone says something absurd, takes a quote out of context, or builds an entire segment around a mystery source familiar with the matter, normal people typically respond in the same way. A smirk, a raised eyebrow, a look at the camera. That's not performance. That's the universal, "Are we really doing this?" face. And here's the irony. She's trying to paint Scott as fake, while he's literally, you all know this, the only unscripted person on every single CNN panel he's part of, on a network that rarely, if ever, besides Scott, platforms conservatives. Oh, but if you thought she stopped there, you are very, very wrong. In this next clip, she pushes it even further. She just can't help herself. You got to check this out. Back to it.
Right. Is that what I mean to ask is that is authentic to you? Almost everyone I talked to said you're not like that off screen. I think I'm the same.
A conservative?
No, of course. That's not what I'm talking about. Not as pugnacious, not as performative, not, you've perfected. I have a smirk too, Scott. So, you've perfected the smirk for sure. It's an expression, does the drunk agree with the sober kind of thing.
Well, I think the show and the format of the show lends itself to conflict. I mean, it lends
Mhm.
itself to in the moment fast debates. Most conversations you have in real life, you're not on a clock. It's not adversarial. There isn't a moderator sitting there going, okay, here's the issue. Now fight, which is
Yeah.
essentially what we do. So I guess I would just say conversations you have off of a television debating show out in the real world are just by their
Mhm.
nature constructed differently. But I'll tell you this, I don't say anything on TV I don't believe in or can't defend. And I do think I have a responsibility to represent to the audience how the vast majority of Republicans or conservatives are viewing something at any given time. That's kind of the point of the show, is to show both sides and let people react to that.
Half the people who watch it, or more than half probably, think you're the villain, right? There's always a villain on a show. As you said, you're channeling, you're the press secretary, you're channeling people. Is that a positive thing for you, being seen that way, or I guess a hero among those who are conservative like you?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I guess it depends on your disposition. I mean, to some people, maybe I'm a villain. To some people, I'm a hero for being willing to stand up on a network that isn't known for platforming conservatives or conservative views to a table full of people who are hostile to my worldview. So I don't necessarily think of it that way. I try to make it entertaining. I tend to think political conversation can be somewhat boring, but that it's possible for it to be entertaining, and you can be, quippy and funny at times and show a little personality. I tend to think that draws in audiences, and it's one of the reasons that show's working.
Is that a good for America, given how polarized we are as a society?
I think it's good for America for them to be more engaged with politics than less. And I think politics and conversation about politics can be extremely boring and off-putting, and frankly, not feel very accessible to a lot of people. And one of the things I do think about is what makes this informative but also engaging. Like, do I want to watch this or not? And I do think that's an important question. Can we draw people in? But I don't say things out there that I believe to be false. I don't say things out there like I would never misrepresent something that I know or that I've heard someone say. But I think if you could present your arguments in a way that attract more audience, I think that's ultimately a good thing for civil discourse. You don't have to be super boring or super off-putting just because it's politics. And that's kind of what I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, I suppose it's if you think that kind of thing is bad nutrition, like is a Twinkie versus an actual substantive food, I guess. I mean, if I was going to use a metaphor.
I think it's one of the best shows on cable television. I think it's informative. I think you get to hear some authentic representations of how the right and the left are seeing the world. I also think it's illuminating to the fact that we don't really have a shared reality often in this country. What
That's
people
true.
sitting out there who oppose me see the world as, and what I see it as, may be very far apart. This is one of the only times we're interacting with each other. I tend to think there's something good that's going to come out of that, even if it comes out of some kind of a conflict at the table.
And you think you're helping in that regard, helping versus hurting.
I think having an authentic conservative out there to reflect how we're absorbing the news and the issues of the day is helpful.
I really hope the majority of you stuck around for that second clip, because this is so telling. Her bias is so loud, even though she never raises her voice. You heard her say it. Half the audience sees you as a villain. Is that good for America? What kind of question is that? Not only do I think that's an extremely insulting question, this tells you everything about the worldview she's operating from. To her, debate itself is the problem. Disagreement is unhealthy. Conflict is dangerous. Platforms that include conservatives are suspect. This is just one of the 857,000 major problems with liberals. Conservatives believe debate clarifies reality. The left treats disagreement like contamination. That's why her big question is, should we even have these panels when America is so divided? What a wild thing to say when your network is 99% liberals with scripted DNC-approved talking points, and you've got one conservative trying to explain how more than half the country thinks. I am so embarrassed at how naive I am. I genuinely thought that everyone, including the dumbest left-wing fool, understood the fact that if Americans only talk to people who agree with them, the whole country becomes a giant echo chamber. The fact that she sees that as a threat says so much more about her side of the aisle than it could ever say about Scott. These were just short clips of a very long interview, but it highlighted something very important. The fact that you have a host who sees disagreement as dangerous is telling you exactly why these conversations matter so much. At the end of the day, this whole interview reveals one thing. She walked in wanting to expose Scott as fake and walked out proving how real he actually is. He never got defensive, never changed tone, never broke character, because there's no character to break. I don't know Scott personally, and I think most people that are in front of a camera are different off air than they are on air. But based on his behavior and what I know about him, I think he's about as close as you can get to being the same person on air, off air, on a friendly panel, or inside hostile territory. And the fact that she couldn't land a single hit, even with a friendly audience and a complete home field advantage, tells you everything you need to know about who's being genuine and who isn't. I really enjoyed this video because it gives us a glimpse at Scott outside of the CNN video. However, if you want to see him put in work and just shred liberals like this lunatic apart, then click on one of the videos on the end screen. We've got a boatload of them on here. But what do you guys think? Am I misreading this? Am I being too harsh? Or did the host come in with an absolute agenda to take Scott down? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoy this kind of breakdown and want even more behind the scenes content, consider joining our membership program. You'll get exclusive posts and more direct access to the channel. Finally, I want to recognize and thank our newest founding fathers, Christina Alvarez and Thomas Plant. Thank you both so much for joining. But I also want to thank all of you for taking some time out of your day to watch my video. I understand that your time's valuable, and I'm grateful that you spent it with me today. Otherwise, always put God first. I will see you guys tomorrow. And click on that next video. It's a good one.